everyone. Welcome to World AIDS Day 2022. Hello, welcome. We would like you to start to come forward. We're going to get ready to have our event. Can we ask people to generally come forward, please? Should we go up? Hello, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Please grab a coffee, please grab a t-shirt, please come forward because we'd like to start our commemoration and World AIDS Day celebration with all of you. I'm Meg Doherty, I'm the Director of Global HIV, Hepatitis and STI Programs at WHO here, headquarters Geneva. And I'm really pleased to be here today with my colleague, Carlos Garcia de Leon, who is the UN Plus coordinator for UNAIDS and here in Geneva. We want to thank and welcome all the ambassadors, all the special guests who have joined us today, including Lois Pace, who's with us, who is and a number of other notable, notable, I have papers that are a little confusing to me here today, so sorry about that. And I'm also a little tired. We've been going strong on World AIDS Day since, I guess, 3 days now. So it's exciting that today we can actually culminate with a great session where we can be all in red and walk to the chair and show that we're having some renewal of our movement and our advocacy, because that's what we need in terms of Equalize and getting back on track. But with this, I just want to say I welcome everyone, all dignitaries, all protocols observed. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we're going to be having just a series of short speeches from the global health leaders here today. After that, we walk to and march to the Place des Nations to show our commitment to ending AIDS. We will be making a virtual red ribbon with all of us who are in red, and which will be viewed from above. So it's important that you wear your t-shirt, and please do get your t-shirt all the same size. So don't worry about that. And we will be back, we will be starting to leave around 2:50 this afternoon. And right now I'd like to hand over to my co-moderator for the candle lighting ceremony. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Thank you very much, Meg, and I'm really happy to once again see you here. Well, the last time it was virtual, but really happy to do so. This is a very special day for me and for everyone here, I'm sure, because it gives the possibility of think of this difficult year that we have, but also to think in the possibilities of the next one. I'm really glad to see one of my two leaders, my two champions here in front of me. I want to invite them. She's Violeta Ross and Maureen Moringa. I want to invite them, my friends, to light this candle, to honor those who pass away, who died from HIV, and who raise their voices and inspires our daily work. I think it's a very important moment for us because to reignite the passion, to restart and renew this equalized world. So thank you very much for all of us living with HIV. It's a great possibility to light a different world. Thank you very much. So Maureen, if you can stay here and share with us some words. Moringa is the Executive Director of Lean On Me Foundation from Kenya. She's a very respected activist and she's a board member of UNAIDS. So Maureen, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you all of you who have made it to this place. I just want us, today they have told me to watch time. So can we have like 20 seconds of a moment of silence? Thank you very much. So that moment of silence is in remembrance of all the children that we have lost in the fight against HIV. All the children we have betrayed. All the children we have failed to serve. That moment of silence is for all the children, the 800,000 children who have HIV and are not on antiretroviral therapy. That moment of silence is about the children who cannot access diagnosis because we don't have point of care diagnosis. That moment of silence is about children who cannot get care because they're living with guardians and grandparents who do not know that they have HIV. That moment of silence is of the failure we have had in reaching out to adolescent girls and young women who are pregnant and enabling them to have HIV-free babies. And that moment of silence is for the non-optical treatment that the children receive. The heat-sensitive treatment that is given to children who are living in areas which are resource-constrained and do not have refrigerators and cannot store their medication. Therefore, they are not achieving viral suppression. That moment of silence is a reminder that we need to stop to look at children as statistics, to say the numbers are bad, but to look at their lives, give them an opportunity to live, whether they're HIV positive or not, and give them an opportunity to thrive. So we are calling upon everyone, each and every one of you, in your moment of fighting for your rights, in your moment of equalizing, please remember the one group that cannot be here because of age constraints and because some of them cannot even talk, the children. So we hope that Global Fund, PEPFAR, and all the country partners that are working on the HIV response will remember children. And UNAIDS, in your innovation, innovate better diagnosis and treatment for children. We need that as soon as yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. And I want to invite my colleague and friend, Violeta Ross, an awesome activist also, but now she's the head of the Ecumenical Advocacy Alliance. Please say your thoughts about Wellness Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Violeta. I am from Bolivia. I am living with HIV 22 years, but since February, I am working in the World Council of Churches, leading the Ecumenical HIV and AIDS initiatives and advocacy. The World Council of Churches has been working on HIV since 1984, trying to equip faith communities to be competent in the HIV response. The World AIDS Day is a moment of joy for people living with HIV like me, but it's also a moment of great sadness. Too many people died before we had treatments, and too many communities continue to be stigmatized, discriminated, and too many human rights are still denied. We are now more than 40 years responding to this pandemic, and science has given us very strong tools. We have this news that a person who is taking treatment can reach an undetectable viral load and can no longer transmit HIV. We have PrEP, we have effective treatment, but yet last year, 1.5 million people acquired HIV and 650,000 people died of AIDS. The Global AIDS Strategy tell us, and UNAIDS tell us that this is because of the inequalities. And I can give a testimony of those injustices, especially the inequalities that are related to gender, economic livelihoods, and healthcare. So as we reflect in the next phase of the HIV response, I want to ask all of you, what are we doing in order to bring equality? What are we doing in order to open more spaces for exercising human rights, to expand access to services and resources? What programs are we prioritizing, and what voices are we listening? And so my ask to you today in this World AIDS Day is, please do not get tired. Please, let's keep rising the flag of love, the flag of justice, the flag of equality. We have to do this in honor of the 40 million people who died, and also in honor of the 38 million who are now living with HIV. Thank you.
Thank you, Violeta. Let me invite all of you to hear the special message from our Executive Director, Winnie Benjama, for this special commemoration.
I want to thank you all, member states, international organizations, and communities for coming together today to mark World AIDS Day. It's been a long time since all of us, UNAIDS, WHO, Global Fund, ILO, UNITAID, ILG, World Council of Churches, UN Plus, and IAS have had the chance to reflect together on the meaning of this important day. I want to thank each and every one of you for your unique contribution. Your work is essential, and together we can and will achieve the end of AIDS.
It's now my distinct pleasure to reintroduce the next segment of the Leadership in HIV Response. We will be hearing from 3 different global leaders in this area. First, let me start with Ms. Lois Pace, the Assistant Secretary of the Office of Global Affairs of the Department of Health and Human Services in the United States. She is such a champion for ensuring no person is left behind in the HIV response. And we still remember her defense of the LGBTQI rights at the World Health Assembly 2022 in defense of our global health sector strategies on HIV. And we remain indebted and thankful for that. Thank you, Lois, for joining us today. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you also to Violeta and Maureen. It's just really great to follow all of you as well as dear Winnie. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy World AIDS Day. I want to start a little bit where Violeta did, which is really acknowledging both the joy and pain of today. I will start with the joy, knowing that so much has been achieved and accomplished with many people in this room and on screen or online. So thank you for everything that you have done in this fight to end AIDS as we know it today. I can speak for the investments my government, the US government has made over time. We can celebrate having invested more than $100 billion in the global HIV AIDS response. I know that I, along with many of you, was a part of this fight in the early years when we didn't know what to do. I was working for the Catholic Church at the time, and there was a lot of work to be done indeed. And so now, 20 years later, really looking back on how much we've been able to accomplish together is really something that is quite heartwarming. We're also coming off of a record-breaking replenishment cycle of the Global Fund, of which the US and many in this room are partners. Hello, Maneke. And we're just very happy to celebrate that also with each of you having been able to raise over $15.7 billion, I think we're counting, in pledges towards that effort. And again, we all should be happy and proud of that great work. But as we think about our 20th anniversary of the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief in the US, at least, and think about the lives that we have saved, whether it's babies born or people on treatment, we also have to recognize that the hard part is very much still in front of us. And this is where we get into a little bit of the sorrow. Because unfortunately, as Maureen was saying, right, behind all of those statistics are people that still are lost. And they are not being reached because we are not looking for them, because we are not pursuing them and finding them where they need to be found, where they want to be found and held and supported and saved by each of us. And so I stand here at least reaffirming our commitment as US government to those people, to those communities, yes, but to those very individuals who are still seeking our support for our theme this year for World AIDS Day. That is putting ourselves to the test, achieving equity to end HIV. So that's us as US government stakeholders and leaders holding ourselves accountable for what still has yet to be done, knowing that, yes, there's a lot to be celebrated, but we also need to be held accountable in our actions and in our inaction, frankly, recognizing there's still a lack of fairness and justice in this space, and that we cannot look the other way. So that is our charge, I think. And to the degree you all want to adopt that for yourselves, we welcome it. We know we need to end discrimination and stigma for those living with HIV. We know that we cannot change the trajectory without protecting human rights in this space and defending rights. And as Meg acknowledged, that fight still being ahead of us across the spectrum. So again, thank you for all the ways that you have joined us in this fight, that you have invited us into this fight, and the ways that I know we'll continue to work to erase barriers and ensure that we have a more equitable world and a sincere commitment to dignity and justice for all. Thanks again.
Thank you. Always so eloquent. Now it's my pleasure to be able to introduce my boss, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who has led on the HIV response in Ethiopia and carried that forward to WHO, where he has recommitted his support for HIV. And we will be having a video message from him, and he regrets that he's not able to be here with you today.
Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, World AIDS Day is an opportunity to reaffirm and refocus on our shared commitment to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. We have just 8 years left, and we are not where we need to be. New infections and deaths are not decreasing fast enough. Millions of people, including children, remain undiagnosed or untreated. And severe inequalities and inequities prevent people from getting the care they need. Key populations: men who have sex with men, transgender people, sex workers, people who inject drugs or are in prison, continue to face many barriers to care. With their partners, these populations make up 70% of all new infections globally. While transmission has declined in Africa, there has been no significant decline among men who have sex with men in the past 10 years. The outbreak of Mpox shows that infections can move quickly in sexual networks, but with community-led response and open attitudes to address stigma, transmission can be prevented and lives can be saved. I call on all countries to implement WHO's global health sector strategies on HIV, hepatitis, and sexually transmitted infections, and to implement our guidelines on key populations, as well as the actions outlined by the new Global Alliance to End AIDS in Children. With global solidarity and bold leadership, we can make sure everyone receives the care they need. Ending AIDS is everybody's business. I thank you.
We thank Dr. Tedros for being able to speak these words and show that he's here with us, at least in spirit and in heart, if he's not able to be with us in person. So lastly, we have a video message from the WHO Goodwill Ambassador for Health Promotion. Some of you may know this gentleman. He's the Brazilian goalkeeper, Alisson Becker. And we're so excited during the World Cup that we are able to have him also make a statement in support of World AIDS Day.
Today is World AIDS Day 2022. The theme is Equalize. As football is an equalizer, we must also equalize access to HIV prevention, testing, care, and treatment for all people everywhere. As a goalkeeper, I know what it is like to make saves. When it comes to HIV, you can play your part by letting everyone know HIV can be prevented. Having HIV is no longer a death sentence. Excellent treatments exist to prevent and treat HIV. And it is easy for people to get tested and know their HIV status. We also must fight stigma and discrimination. I call on everyone from football fans following the FIFA World Cup to health champions attending World AIDS Day events to speak openly about HIV, support access to services, and dispel myths. We can end AIDS by 2030, but it will take teamwork by us all to equalize the playing field.
So we thank him for his message, and we just have to say this has been one of our more popular messages, and we know that people would like to find it and reproduce it. It is found on the WHO website, and certainly it's open to use. But I think what's so important, and what we've heard messages, is that youth need to be engaged, and that we need to identify ways to be able to engage people who have not been working in this field for 30 or 40 years. And football, grassroots soccer, and some other opportunities to engage youth have been very, very successful. So we need to build on those partnerships as we move forward to equalize our responses. So now I'd like to pass back to Carlos.
Thank you, Meg. And for this slot, we have really important messages and a call for action. And I want to invite His Excellency, Mr. Jock Laver from Switzerland. He facilitated our high-level meeting 2016, and I'm honored to have you here. So please, if you can share with us your message.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Good afternoon. It's a bit tough to follow after a member of the Brazilian national football team, but friends, this cause is a personal as much as a professional one to me, and I'm really happy to be here this afternoon. I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. I also would like to take the opportunity to thank you all, members, staff of UNAIDS here in Geneva and in the field, civil society. I even recognize a few old friends I worked with in 2015, 2016. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing, for not giving up, for pursuing this important campaign. Now, as the Swiss ambassador in Geneva, it's an honor also to be here this afternoon, but it's also a signal, it should be a signal of how proud we are, Switzerland, to host UNAIDS here in Geneva, to be your host state, but also to commit again as Switzerland our continued support for UNAIDS and the fight against HIV/AIDS. As you said, in 2016, it's been a few years. I was involved in the political declaration, and back then we thought, at least we hoped, that the political declaration outlined a clear path towards eradication of the AIDS pandemic by 2030. Now, according to the latest data that were published this week, unfortunately, we see that HIV infections and AIDS-related death are not declining fast enough, at least not fast enough to end the pandemic as we wanted to, as we still want to, by 2030. Despite of all the efforts of the last decades, the pandemic is responsible for more than 13,000 deaths every week. 13,000 deaths every week. I know you know these figures, but for me, it's still shocking to see that again, black and white. I believe that on this UN World AIDS Day, and it was mentioned before, we really need to think about what's the drivers behind this and concentrate more our attention on the inequalities that drive HIV and AIDS, but also how we can make sure that we, the international community, provide sufficient funds for UNAIDS to fulfill your mandate. I want to believe, and I really think it is still possible to end the pandemic by 2030, but obviously we really need to step up our efforts and we need to show our responsibility and our solidarity. So again, thank you very much with this. Happy World AIDS Day, and thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak a few words. Thank you very much. Thanks.
We appreciate really a lot your message, and yes, we can do it for 2030. We need a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and we can do it. Let me invite Clary Moran, Director for Global Health, here exceptionally from the United Kingdom, to share a little bit about the experience. Thank you for your message and to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'll also start by saying this feels very personal for me. So I started my career working in Nigeria on HIV, and to be here at your headquarters giving you this World AIDS Day message is a very humbling thing for me. And I also want to thank all of you for everything that you do. So today on World AIDS Day, we're called to action in the global fight to equalize. And we know that if we want to end the AIDS epidemic, we have to address the inequalities that underpin it. And that means rewriting discriminatory laws, combating social stigma, and building strong, resilient, inclusive health systems everywhere. The UK is really proud of our history in the global AIDS response. And I'm here today to say we remain committed to funding the key players. So UNAIDS, UNITAID, WHO, the Robert Carr Foundation. Our new £1 billion pledge to the Global Fund will help save 1.2 million lives and ensure that 2 million people receive antiretroviral therapy. And we believe that an integrated health systems approach is critical. And we want to continue to work with key partners to ensure that the latest innovations are affordable and accessible. Now, World AIDS Day also falls within the 16 days of activism to end violence against women and girls. And the UK is dedicated to championing the rights of women and girls, including sexual and reproductive rights, ending gender-based violence, and investing in girls' education. I think the UNAIDS flagship Education Plus initiative is really exciting, and what it's aiming to do in terms of transforming the lives of millions of women and girls in sub-Saharan Africa through education as a strategic entry point. But we know, as we've heard from other speakers, we still have a long way to go if we are to end the AIDS epidemic by 2030. We need collective effort across all sectors, government, civil society, academia, private sector, and more. So I want to finish again by thanking all of you here today for the tireless work that you do to end the AIDS epidemic, and to send a really clear signal to reaffirm the UK's commitment to addressing the inequalities that drive HIV. Thank you.
Thank you. Completely agree. Education to equalize, commitment to equalize. And let me invite, sorry, I'm happening the same thing with the papers. Brigitte Poniatowski, Executive Director of IIS. Wonderful to have you here after Montreal, and also to have you here with all those flags in the Mont Blanc Bridge that flags this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much. On World AIDS Day, as all the other speakers have said, we pause to mourn the ones we've lost. We honor their lives, but we also mark the progress that we've made in the last 40 years. And advances over the last 4 decades have clearly been significant, but still, and I will repeat these numbers again, and we have to keep repeating them, a staggering 1.5 million people newly acquired HIV last year, and 650,000 people died. This is unacceptable. And it's clear, and everybody else here has said that as well, it's inequalities that are the principal driver of the HIV pandemic today. So we must change our approach. Rather than thinking and talking of hard-to-reach populations, we should think of hard-to-reach health services. Let us not put the responsibility of access to care, knowledge, or resources on people, and instead be sure that all our strategies build around the individual, especially the most vulnerable. Putting people first across all aspects of the HIV response is a moral imperative and the only viable route to progress. Whether in the design of clinical trials, the formulation of policies, or any other aspect of our efforts, people living with and affected by HIV must not just be beneficiaries, but they're the actors driving all of our efforts. Today, we call on those active in the HIV response to champion an environment that empowers all to be part of the solution. Consider yourselves accountable to people living with HIV and affected by HIV first and foremost, and weigh and measure all your actions against their impact on people's lives. This is what a person-centered approach should look like across our entire movement. And today on World AIDS Day, we call on all organizations involved in the HIV response to examine what a person-centered approach means for you. We challenge you to closely examine how well your strategies and programs put people living with and affected by HIV first at all stages of your work. We will not overcome HIV unless we overcome inequality first. And we won't overcome inequality unless we put people first. Thank you.
Thank you for your message. Thank you. And let me share with you the Waka Kosha song music video that was made last October as part of the Waka Kosha. I have to read it 3 times to remember it. Programmed by Beyond Stigma. This song was created by young people affected by HIV living in Zimbabwe. So let's hear a community message from them.
Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are important. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are important. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are important. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are. Self-stigma stops me doing what I wanna do. I have to take a deep breath. I know I can get through. I am who I am and I'm learning how to love. There's so much stigma, but I will rise above. Our cause tell us how we feel, we have the choice. I'm worth it, I'm here, I have the voice. Teach me so I can go and tell the others. I want to share this with my sisters and my brothers. Wakosha, you worth it. Wakosha, you are important. Wakosha, you worth it. Wakosha, you are. Say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Where you can learn to work and play. We get along with each other. Now I'm inspired, confident I come. I believe in myself, believe in who I am. Remember to pretend I just alone. Question my thinking, see what I found. It's a simple message, and it comes from the heart. Oh, believe in yourself, cause that's this place to start. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Where you can learn to work and play. You get along with each other. I can feel love and proud of my body, it's my friend. It was perfectly made from God, we won't part to the end. People with HIV can do anything, we can be free. Positive or negative, we will save you and me. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are important. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are. And I'll say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Where you can learn to work and play. And get along with each other. Now I'm inspired, confident I come. I believe in myself, believe in who I am. Remember to pretend to talk around. Question my thing, you see what I found. It's a simple message, and it comes from the heart. Oh, believe in yourself, cause that's the place to start. And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Where you can learn to work and play. And get along with each other. Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha, you are important. 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 Wakosha, you are it. Wakosha,
that all the young people are connected here. And so we want to shout out again and do another round of thanks so you can hear us. We know that this, that Gendaria, the cats, everything, the amazing work you do in Zimbabwe, I think should be reproduced all around the world. And I guess all of our partnerships here could learn something from this song, that we need to all work together to achieve our goals together. So now we're coming to the end of this Remembrance and World AIDS Day session. We have two more speakers. I'd like to invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Sufratra Sima Trisipak from Thailand, the Ambassador and Chair of the PCB for 2022, to make her closing remarks. And I know they wanted to be here with us so much, but we have her statements, Her Excellency's statement on video.
Here as a representative of the chair of the UNAIDS Program Coordinating Board, or PCB, a position which Thailand has held throughout 2022. Today, on World AIDS Day, we stand at an important juncture in the AIDS response as we try to leave behind the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and to pursue our development goal. SDG 3 targets the end of HIV/AIDS by 2030, and we must remain determined to achieve this goal. There is a lot of work to do in the next few years. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot lose sight of the fact that in 2021, 650,000 lives were lost to AIDS, and 1.5 million people newly acquired HIV. The new UNAIDS report, launched this past Tuesday, is entitled Dangerous Inequalities for Good Reason. The statistics clearly show the ongoing unequal gender treatment, not only for men and women, but also for children who are both at risk and living with HIV. The causes can be varied, heavily depending on social and cultural circumstances, leading to such inequalities, stigmatization, and discrimination. It is evident that a universal health coverage system can be one of the best potions to remedy these undesirable situations. Moreover, UHC can serve as a foundation for better healthcare globally. Next month, on 13 to 16 December, Thailand is honored to be the host of the 51st meeting of the PCB in Chiang Mai province, the northern part of the country. We welcome all delegates to Thailand once again as a change in scenery. The last time a PCB meeting was held outside Geneva was 14 years ago. I hope the vibrancy and warmth of Chiang Mai province will provide a suitable setting for PCB 51 to reignite global passion. And I hope this can contribute to achieving our goal to end HIV/AIDS by 2030 together. On the occasion of World AIDS Day today, I wish all those fighting against HIV/AIDS strength and courage. My best thoughts are with you. You never walk alone. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know members of the PCB will be very much enjoying getting to have these discussions in a new setting and actually seeing what the good work has been done and what where the challenges lie still. So for our final statement and segment of this segment, I'd like to invite Marieke Winrock, the Chief of Staff of the Global Fund for AIDS, TB, and Malaria. We know that we need the Global Fund to be able to ensure that we can get back on track after this pause or this decline. And we're very happy to know that you've had such a great replenishment. So we're happy to hear your words on World AIDS Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meg. And I'm so relieved that I didn't have to speak after this really wonderful musical video. So guys in Zimbabwe, if you're looking, this is absolutely amazing. And I would have looked so boring if I would have to speak after you. So I'm really glad I had a little break. But as other people have said before me, this really is a very bittersweet day. Over the last 2 decades, we have made tremendous progress in the fight against HIV. But at the same time, as I stand here, stark inequities, both within and between countries, continue to fuel HIV and AIDS. Persistent human rights abuses and deep gender inequalities prevent us from advancing towards the goal of ending HIV by 2030. Today, on World AIDS Day, we must recommit to extending HIV response to all those at risk, especially the communities left furthest behind who are disproportionately affected by HIV, such as LGBTQI populations, sex workers, people who use drugs, and other groups facing massive stigma and discrimination in their societies. But as Maureen reminded us, half of the children living with HIV get the life-saving treatment they need. That's unacceptable. But also it's unacceptable that thousands of children are still being born with HIV when this is entirely preventable. Equally unjust is the impact of HIV on adolescent girls and young women. Every 2 minutes, a young woman acquires HIV. 4 decades after HIV first emerged, AIDS remains the leading cause of death among women of reproductive age. This is a deeply disturbing indicator of gender inequity in global health. The COVID-19 pandemic really threw us off track and had a devastating impact on the progress we've made against HIV. COVID-19 exacerbated existing inequalities, leaving the most vulnerable to HIV behind. And after years of steady progress, we've seen new infections increasing in a number of communities and countries over the last couple of years. The Global Fund realized the potential impact COVID could have on HIV, TB, and malaria very soon. And we responded quickly and at scale to the pandemic, mobilizing over $4.4 billion to fight COVID-19. And part of these funds were used to protect frontline workers involved in the fight against HIV, to adapt the HIV program so that it would provide services more at the community level and by communities and virtually, and move to multi-month dispensing, but to just a few of the innovations that were introduced during COVID. This year, the Global Fund, as Lloyd just reminded us, if you need reminding, led a successful 7th replenishment, which raised $15.7 billion, which is pretty amazing in the current economic and geopolitical context, with many competing priorities. And while we fell short of our target of 18 billion, we still can send countries very good allocations by the end of this month, December. In a world where conflict and climate change are exacerbating inequalities and further increasing threats from infectious diseases, we cannot slow down. On World AIDS Day 2022, we must commit to work harder and smarter to defeat HIV, build resilient and sustainable systems for health, and we must continue to raise our voices and speak out for those who are left behind. We must equalize now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's now my pleasure, I believe Ephraim, Chief of Staff for UNAIDS, will give us some closing remarks as well.
Yes, I will abuse a bit of our power as hosts to this fantastic event. It's so inspiring to share in all of the work and all of the ambitions and all of the friendship and fighting spirit in this very particular day. It's our day in the HIV movement. And I think if there is one conclusion that we must draw from this, It is that inequalities that are man-made, literally, we can fix them. It's our task to do that. And that's why we have this call to action, which is Equalize. Inequalities are a deep injustice, but they're also self-defeating. We've seen that in COVID. We know it in HIV. And as we continue to push the envelope, because we will do, we know that the right to health wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for HIV, or access to meds, or inclusion of communities. And so this is something that we honor daily, and it's something that will get us also to the end goal, 2030, in beating AIDS. So really, thank you everyone who's joined us for this moment. And now we will have some words from colleagues to explain something that I haven't figured out yet in Geneva, how to march in your t-shirt without getting cold. Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. I'm sorry, besides putting on your coat. Welcome, colleagues. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Let me introduce Ben Phillips, our Director of Communications.
Thank you, Anne-Claire. Now, this day is involved all of us, but it was organized by Anne-Claire. So firstly, thank you, Anne-Claire. Now, this was just the beginning. This is just the beginning part of the day. Please don't think this is the end, and here's why. We want you to come and walk with us and march with us together to the broken chair. And the symbol of the broken chair is a symbol that says, whatever you do to a person, however much injustice they face, they still are standing, and they are standing proud. And we will be at the broken chair together to be heard, that there's nothing to be ashamed of about HIV, and that the movement to end AIDS will not go quietly into the night. So we want you there with us. Now, maybe you think you're not an activist. Maybe you think you used to be an activist, but now you work for the UN, or now you work for the government, or for the Global Fund. You are here, and because you're here, you are an activist, and we need you. Now, to Ephraim's question, how can we go out there when it's so cold? And the answer is that there'll be so many of us powered with so much love and determination, you won't feel any cold. So if you're going to be there, say, I'll be there. Will you be there? 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 Let's go.
Colleagues, follow Carusa and Jason and the banners and that way.